So I didn't think I'd be making another video about Milo Winter. I really didn't. I thought we were kind of done with it. And just done. No satisfaction, just done. But more stuff, more patterns, more accurately things are starting to line up, and once you see it, you can't really unsee it. I'm Darth James, this is not scripted, like so do the usual, and check out my Patreon and channel memberships for a podcast, and early access to all the goodies. Okay, I want to keep the focus on writing with this, not the drama, not the internet nonsense, just the writing, because that's where everything started to fall apart. So let's just walk you through slowly, because it gets messy and I have a footnote. Milo moved to Finland. At this point, the story is still, I'm working on the Age of Scorpius. That's the project. That's the thing everything was orbiting around. But in the background, two other ideas started forming. The Lycanthrope Crusade and Runen? R-U-N-O. So, werewolf fantasy meets, and the other one I think is just a Finnish fantasy novel. And I want to pause for a second here, because that's already a lot. That's not just I've got an idea, that's multiple creative projects starting at the same point. And look, that's not weird. Writers do that. You probably do that. I know I've done that. That part is normal. But what isn't normal is what was being said at the same time, because publicly it was still, I'm working on the Age of Scorpius. Constantly, repeatedly, like the main focus. Then September rolled around, and now the werewolf fantasy idea, Lycanthrope Crusade, started becoming more than just an idea. It's planning, it's development, it's attention, but again, nothing changed publicly. Then Alter Life dropped, poetry collection, smaller project, sure, maybe more manageable, or just to fill a gap in, or just to prove a point. And now we get three things at least. And I think that was the point when things started to fall off, if you look back at it. That's the best way to put it. I think that's where things started to kind of, the ADHD hyperfixation had already left the Age of Scorpius at that point. It was in the hands of the team, air quotes, and this whole other idea was starting to just happen. Because I'm going to put it out there, writing doesn't really work like that. Not in any sustainable way. You don't seriously build multiple projects at once at that level with that kind of emotional investment without something slipping. Something will always slip, and eventually something did. January hit and the tone changed. Now it's, I haven't been working on the Age of Scorpius for X amount of months, where I've got too busy. And it's subtle, but it's a shift, because before that the implication was progress, now it's absence. And then later we find out it goes further than that. Milo said they hadn't been working publicly, they hadn't been really working on the Age of Scorpius since August. At some point. Probably the post is deleted now, but we have screenshots. And I think that was just the break. I think that was just the quiet break where everything just shattered. Because that's not delay, that's not burnout, that's not life got in the way. That's months of saying something's happening when it isn't, and Milo's pattern of lying about everything is very evident. And I keep coming back to that because that difference matters. If it had been I lost interest, I couldn't focus, I dropped the project, whatever. That's human. That's normal. That can be something people understand if money was not involved in this. Talked about that in a previous video. But that's not what's happened here. And this is where I started looking at the pattern instead of the individual moments, because on their own, you can explain any of this away. Individually, it can, on some level, sound reasonable. But together, big project, big claims, emotional weights. I've been working on this for years. I've put everything into this, then silence, change focus, new idea. Repeating pattern that's been going on for a very, very long time. And it isn't, and the new idea wasn't small either. It's something with history, something with something big, something that probably means something emotionally. Again, Milo projecting themselves into their work in an unhealthy level, probably using it as a coping mechanism, or more likely using the fictional worlds he creates as a coping mechanism. The lycanthrope, the werewolf thing, isn't random. That's not a throwaway idea, that's something with roots, which makes it stronger, more compelling, more addictive in a way. And then you start thinking about the dopamine side of things, because I've talked about that before as well. The cycle, where the idea of something gives you more than actually doing it. And I don't say that lightly, because I recognise it, I've done it, a lot of people have done it, and there's a reason a lot of old content on my channel is private, because a lot of it is dopamine. But there's a massive difference between experiencing something like that privately than building a public narrative around it. Because now we're not talking about unfinished work, we're talking about a version of events that doesn't line up with reality. Again, Milo's taste for lying and manipulating the truth, which has been an ongoing pattern going back a very long time, and there's a lot of lies that I don't want to talk about here, but I think a lot of it is probably psychological protection. The idea that if they project a version of themselves they want to be, that people will see them as that version. Milo has said that he's autistic, and that can be a pattern of behaviour in some people with autism. So, hi neurospicy brain, I'm neurospicy as well. I recognise this stuff, not to this level, but it has been part of my life. Probably the worst way, and much smaller than this. And once that all starts happening, everything becomes questionable, right? Even the parts you want to believe. And yeah, this is where it's going to get a bit uncomfortable, because I don't think the Age of Scorpius really existed beyond the beginning. We had a finished book, but I think that was it. I think the dopamine had ended, and that first draft was it. An endlessly rewritten first draft, not editing. Because Milo doesn't know how to edit. And obviously we know what happened when the book came out. Okay. Now, I think we're going to go... let's get into the editor situation. And I'm not going to go too hard on that, because I could be wrong. But the writing... Is it Caitlin? I think the editor's name. But the writing, the grammar, the tone, all feel identical to Milo. Like, on a level that's kind of surreal. I don't think that was a real person. And a few people have said that. We could all be wrong on that. But unless something concrete comes out, it's very rare to find an editor who has the exact same tone, the exact same grammar, the exact same cadence, the exact same lack of understanding of basic human language that's identical to yours. I think that's like getting struck by lightning and then winning the lottery and then getting struck by lightning again. But people noticed, and things stopped being a coincidence. Again, I could be wrong. We could all be wrong. And now, here we are again. New project, new direction. An alleged trip to Japan being planned. And with everything else going on, what the hell? I think this is Milo running away from the problem, because the dopamine is gone, and now it's all public. And this has happened before this book a few times. It's been a repeating cycle. So what will happen next? Milo will probably hyperfixate on Japan. And then the cycle will reset. And I think that's the part that gets to me. It's not even what's happened or happening now, it's how familiar it feels. Because I've seen this version before. And I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because it's predictable. And predictability in something like this is never a good sign. Because it means nothing. Because it means nothing has actually changed. And I know been there. Not to this level, but I have been there. Like, I'll own up to that. And I keep thinking about how easily it could have been to avoid all of this. Just by saying it's not working anymore. But I don't think Milo was capable of that, because this was a coping mechanism rather than a creative project. And yes, a creative project can be a coping mechanism. But this level of self-projection within the work is a major problem. We'll put it that way. And that's just my theory. I'm not diagnosing anyone here. I do feel like it should never have got to this level. There should never have been an LLC. There should never have been this amount of money. It should have just dumped on Amazon, print to order, done. Everything Milo has done with this book is not something you do with your first novel. But instead, it became something bigger, messier, harder to walk back on. And now Milo owes a lot of people a lot of money. And now there's tax season. And now we're at the point where even if something is real going forward, even if a book comes out, it's the best thing ever, I think there's always going to be doubt now. And once you're there, you can't really get rid of it. Trust in marketing, trust in promotion is a big thing. And again, psychologically, that's important for the consumer. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. That's where this whole situation is coming to. And I didn't expect to come back to this. I really didn't want to come back to this. But now everything is lined up properly, and holes in the story, and all of this stuff. New timelines are emerging, and I feel like I'm that stupid meme, or that gif with the person looking confused and all the things flying around their head. But it all makes too much sense now. And honestly, I don't think this is the end of it. I think this is just the next version of the same loop. Anyway, just needed to get this out of my brain before it exploded. So, I will leave it here. Like I said at the beginning, like, sub, tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you want early access to the podcast and all of the fun stuff, you're welcome to consider joining this channel as a member or becoming a member of my Patreon. Because, hey, I have to sell stuff too. Anyway, I can't believe it's coming to this. Yikes. That's the only way I can say it. Yikes.